The blood wouldn't stop coming. I pressed gauze against the entry wound, my hand steady despite the tremor that wanted to climb up my arms and lodge itself in my chest. The man on the gurney didn't make a sound. Not a groan, not a gasp. Just shallow breathing and those dark eyes fixed on my face with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're going to need surgery," I said quietly, keeping my voice level and professional. "The bullet's still lodged near your shoulder blade. I can stabilize you, but no hospitals." His voice was rough, accented with something I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or Sicilian. "No records, no reports. I should have called security right then. Should have followed protocol, documented the obvious gunshot wound, let the police sort out whatever trouble had landed this man on my table at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday." But something in his eyes stopped me. Not a threat, exactly. More like a challenge. Or maybe a plea wrapped in so much pride it could have been mistaken for command. "If I don't report this, I could lose my license," I said, applying fresh gauze as the old one saturated through. The bullet had missed the major arteries. He was lucky, or whoever shot him had terrible aim. "Do you understand what you're asking me to do?" "Yes, simple, direct." Those dark eyes never leaving mine. Behind him, 2 men in expensive suits stood by the door of the private examination room. They'd carried him in through the service entrance, somehow knowing exactly which hallways to take to avoid security cameras, which doors would be unlocked at this hour. One of them had pressed $5,000 cash into the night receptionist's hand. She'd taken it without a word and disappeared into the break room, leaving me alone with 3 men who radiated danger like heat from asphalt in August. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching. I love hearing from you. I should have been terrified. Maybe I was. Underneath the clinical focus that 8 years of nursing had trained into my bones. But mostly, I was exhausted. Bone-tired from a double shift that was supposed to end 3 hours ago. Numb from another month of barely making rent, of choosing between paying off my mother's hospice care and eating something other than ramen. Too worn down to care about the rules that had never protected me anyway. "I need to irrigate the wound," I said, reaching for the saline solution. "This is going to hurt." For the first time, something like amusement flickered across his face. "I've had worse." I believed him. His torso was a roadmap of scars, some surgical, some clearly not. A life written in violence across olive skin and hard muscle. He was probably in his mid-30s, dark hair cut short, a jawline that looked like it had been carved from marble, handsome in a way that felt dangerous to notice. I worked in silence, cleaning the wound with methodical precision. The bullet had entered from behind, below the shoulder blade, traveling at a downward angle. Someone had shot him while he was turned away. An ambush, or a retreat. Neither option suggested the kind of life that ended peacefully. "What's your name?" he asked as I began suturing the entry wound closed. The bullet would have to stay for now. Removal required surgery I couldn't perform in this room with these tools. "Does it matter?" I kept my eyes on my work, on the precise placement of each stitch. "Yes." Something in that single word made me look up. His face was closer than I'd realized. His gaze fixed on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. This wasn't casual curiosity. This was memorization. Like he was filing away every detail of my face for future reference. "Sarah," I said quietly. It was a lie. My name was Elena, but something told me giving this man my real name would be a mistake I couldn't take back. "Sarah Mitchell." He studied me for another long moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you, Sarah Mitchell." I finished the sutures and applied a sterile dressing, then moved to prepare antibiotics and pain medication. "You need to see a real surgeon within 24 hours, I said, drawing up a syringe. "The bullet needs to come out. If it shifts, it could sever the subclavian artery. You'd bleed out in minutes. I have a surgeon." He didn't even flinch when I administered the injection. A discreet one. Of course he did. Men like this, men who got shot and refused hospitals, who traveled with armed guards and paid cash to ensure silence, they had networks, resources. Whole shadow infrastructures built to keep them alive and free. "The antibiotics will help prevent infection," I continued, filling a small bottle with pills from the locked medication cabinet. I was breaking so many rules I'd stopped counting. Take them twice a day, change the dressing every 12 hours, watch for signs of fever, increased redness, or discharge from the wound. I was talking too much, filling the silence with clinical instructions, because the alternative was acknowledging what I was really doing. Aiding and abetting. obstruction of justice. Probably a dozen other charges I couldn't even name. You're very calm, he observed as I finished bandaging his shoulder. Most people would be afraid. I'm terrified, I admitted, surprising myself with the honesty. But fear doesn't change anything. You're still bleeding, and I'm still a nurse. That's all this is. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You're lying about your name. My hand stilled on the bandage. Excuse me? Sarah Mitchell. He said it like he was testing the weight of the words. It doesn't fit you. Your hands hesitated when you said it. Your eyes moved left. You're lying. I stepped back from the gurney, my heart suddenly racing. I treated your wound. Take the medication. See your surgeon. That's all you need from me. Elena. The sound of my real name in his voice froze me in place. I watched as he sat up slowly, carefully, testing his range of motion. One of the men by the door moved forward to help him, but he waved him off. How did you? He nodded toward my scrub top, just above my heart, embroidered in small letters. Elena Rossi, RN. Of course. I'd been so focused on the medical crisis, on keeping my hands steady and my voice calm, that I'd forgotten the most obvious detail. My name was literally written on my chest. Elena Rossi. He said my full name this time, slowly, like he was savoring each syllable. Thank you for your discretion tonight. He reached into his jacket, the movement making me flinch despite myself, and withdrew a thick envelope. He set it on the examination table between us. Even from a distance, I could see the edges of $100 bills. I don't want your money, I said automatically. It's not for the medical treatment. He was standing, now, shrugging carefully into his shirt with the help of one of his men. It's for your silence. And your trouble. I don't want trouble either. That almost smile again. Too late for that, Elena Rossi. He moved toward the door, his guards flanking him immediately. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at me. In the harsh fluorescent light of the examination room, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. Beautiful and terrible at once. You did a good thing tonight, he said quietly. A dangerous thing, but good. I won't forget it. It sounded like a promise. Or maybe a threat. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Then they were gone, disappearing back into the night as silently as they'd come. I stood alone in the examination room, staring at the envelope of money on the table, at the blood-stained gauze in the waste bin, at my own trembling hands. I should have thrown the money away. Should have called the police the moment they left. Should have done 100 things. Differently. Instead, I picked up the envelope and counted it. $20,000. More money than I'd make in 6 months of nursing. Enough to pay for my mother's hospice care for the next year. Enough to stop choosing between rent and food. Blood money, I thought as I tucked it into my bag. But blood was all I'd ever known. I worked in an emergency room in Chicago's South Side. I saw violence every single night, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, domestic abuse victims with hollow eyes and broken bones. The only difference was that tonight, I'd been paid for my silence instead of just expected to maintain patient confidentiality. I cleaned the examination room methodically, disposing of the bloody gauze, sterilizing every surface, erasing all evidence that anyone had been treated here tonight. Then I finished my shift, mechanically triaging the drunk driver in bed 3 and the overdose in bed 7. My mind somewhere else entirely. When I finally walked out into the gray dawn of a Chicago morning, I half expected to find police waiting. Or worse, whoever had shot that man, come to finish the job by eliminating the witness. But the parking lot was empty except for my ancient Honda Civic, its paint oxidized and one headlight held in place with duct tape. I drove home to my studio apartment in Ukrainian Village, climbed the 3 flights of stairs, and locked my door with all 4 locks. Only then did I let myself shake. I dreamed of dark eyes and blood that wouldn't stop coming. When my alarm jarred me awake 4 hours later, I lay in bed staring at my water-stained ceiling and tried to convince myself the whole thing had been a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But the envelope of cash in my bag was real. The memory of his voice saying my name was real. Elena Rossi. I dragged myself out of bed and into the shower, letting scalding water pound against my shoulders until my skin turned pink. I had another shift tonight, the 3rd in a row, because Mercy Hospital was perpetually understaffed and I was perpetually broke. But first, I needed to visit my mother. Oakwood Hospice was 40 minutes north, in a nicer suburb where the streets were lined with trees and the houses had yards. My mother's room overlooked a garden where butterflies gathered in the summer. She'd been there for 8 months, ever since the pancreatic cancer had progressed beyond what home care could manage. Elena, sweetheart. Her voice was paper thin, but her smile was genuine when I walked in. She looked smaller every time I saw her, like she was slowly disappearing into the hospital bed. "You didn't have to come. I know you worked last night." I wanted to. I kissed her forehead and settled into the chair by her bed, taking her hand. It was all bones and translucent skin, the veins prominent and blue. "How are you feeling today?" "Oh, you know." She waved the question away with her free hand. "The same. Tell me about you. Are you eating enough? You look thin." I always looked thin to her, even when I was a child and she'd been healthy and strong, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat after my father left. She'd worried about whether I was eating enough. "I'm fine, Mama." I squeezed her hand gently. "Actually, I have good news. I picked up some extra shifts, and I should be able to pay for your care for the next few months without worrying." It wasn't exactly a lie. I had picked up extra shifts. The money just happened to come from treating a gunshot wound at 3 a.m. for a man who was almost certainly a criminal. "You work too hard," she said, but relief flickered across her face. I knew she worried about the cost of her care, about the burden she thought she was placing on me. As if I'd ever resent a single moment spent keeping her comfortable. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself too." "I promise." We talked for another hour about nothing and everything. She told me about the new nurse who sang while she worked, about the cardinal that visited the garden feeder every morning. I told her about the funny things patients said while under anesthesia, carefully editing out all the violence and desperation that actually defined my job. When visiting hours ended, I kissed her goodbye and drove back to my apartment, trying not to think about how much lighter she'd felt when I hugged her. How her skin had taken on that translucent quality that meant the end was coming soon. I was unlocking my apartment door, juggling my keys and coffee and the bag of takeout I'd picked up on the way home, when I noticed the flowers. They sat on the floor just outside my door. Not a cheap grocery store bouquet, but an elaborate arrangement in a crystal vase. Deep red roses and white lilies, the kind of flowers that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. My hands went cold. There was no card, no note, just the flowers, placed precisely where I couldn't miss them. I looked up and down the hallway, but it was empty, quiet. The building was old, with thin walls and creaking pipes, and neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. No one was watching, but someone had been here. Someone had found out where I lived. I left the flowers in the hallway and bolted my door behind me, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was a message. A reminder that the man from last night knew who I was, where I lived, that the $20,000 had come with strings attached, invisible but unbreakable. I spent the rest of the afternoon jumping at every sound, footsteps in the hallway, the creak of the building settling, sirens in the distance. When it was finally time to leave for my shift, I opened my door cautiously, half expecting to find someone waiting. The flowers were gone. In their place sat a small white box, tied with black ribbon. I should have left it there, should have called the police. Instead, I picked it up with shaking hands and brought it inside, locking the door behind me before opening it. Inside was a phone, new, expensive, the kind I could never afford. A single text message was already loaded on the screen. "For emergencies, keep it with you, D. I turned the letter over in my mind, trying to match it to the face of the man I'd treated. He'd never told me his name. I'd never asked. The phone felt heavy in my palm. A tether. A claim. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I tucked it into my bag next to my real phone and headed to work, trying to ignore the way my pulse raced every time I thought about those dark eyes and that quiet voice. Elena Rossi. The emergency room was chaos from the moment I clocked in. A multi-car pileup on the expressway had sent a flood of trauma cases our way. I moved from bed to bed in a blur of blood and adrenaline, stabilizing a collapsed lung here, starting an IV there, calling out orders to residents who looked barely old enough to drive. It was nearly midnight before things finally slowed down enough for me to catch my breath. I was updating charts at the placed nurse's station when Donna, the night shift charge nurse, appeared at my elbow. "Elena, there's someone asking for you." Her voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes were concerned. In the family waiting room, my stomach dropped. "Who?" He wouldn't give his name, just said it was important, and he'd wait as long as necessary. She lowered her voice. "Honey, he doesn't look like family. And he's got 2 very large men with him, who are making everyone nervous." Of course he did. I found him exactly where Donna said he'd be, sitting in the corner of the waiting room like he owned it. He'd changed since last night, no blood, no visible wounds, Just an expensive dark suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, and that same unsettling intensity in his gaze. The two men flanking him were different from last night's guards, but cut from the same cloth. Big, watchful, dressed well enough to blend in, but radiating violence underneath the polish. Elena. He stood when he saw me, a gesture of courtesy that felt surreal in the fluorescent glare of the hospital. Thank you for seeing me. This is my workplace. I kept my voice low, conscious of the other people in the waiting room trying not to stare. You can't just show up here. I have something for you. He reached into his jacket, that same movement that had made me flinch last night, and withdrew a small envelope. To thank you properly for your help. I already told you, I don't want your money. It's not money. He held the envelope out to me, his expression unreadable. Please. Against my better judgment, I took it. Inside was a business card. Thick cream cardstock with a single phone number embossed in black ink. No name, no company. Just the number. If you ever need anything, he said quietly, his dark eyes locked on mine. Anything at all. You call that number. I don't need anything from you. But even as I said it, I thought of my mother's hospice bills, my student loans, the electric bill I'd been putting off for 2 weeks. I just want to be left alone. Something flickered across his face. Not anger, but something darker. Possessiveness, maybe. Or recognition of a lie I was telling us both. You can't put that back in the box, Elena. His voice was soft, almost gentle. Last night, you made a choice. Whether you meant to or not, you chose a side, my side. I didn't choose anything, I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. I'm a nurse. I treated a patient. That's all. Is that what you tell yourself? He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, cedar and leather. That you're just a nurse doing her job? Not asking questions, not reporting gunshot wounds, not taking $20,000 in cash? Heat flooded my face. How dare you? I'm not judging you, Elena. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the public setting. I'm grateful. More than you know. But you need to understand what that gratitude means in my world. And what world is that exactly? I demanded, finding courage in anger. Who are you? For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he smiled, a real smile this time, not that ghost of amusement I'd seen last night. It transformed his face, softening the hard edges, making him look younger. Almost human. My name is Dante Caruso, he said, as if that should mean something to me. It didn't. Or at least, not immediately. Then memory clicked into place, newspaper headlines I'd half noticed, whispered conversations in the hospital break room about the crime families that still controlled Chicago's South Side. The Caruso family, one of the old Italian organizations that had been running the city since Prohibition. Protection rackets, gambling, loan sharking, and probably much worse than that. I took an involuntary step backward. Oh God. Now you understand. Dante's voice was soft, almost sad. Now you see why I came back, why I needed to make sure you understood what you'd done. I saved your life, I whispered, the full implications crashing over me like a wave. I saved a Mafia boss's life. Yes. He didn't deny it, didn't try to soften it. You did. And now, Elena Rossi, whether you like it or not, you're under my protection. Because the people who shot me, the ones who tried to kill me in an ambush outside my own restaurant, they're going to find out eventually that someone patched me up. And when they do, they're going to come looking for that someone. The waiting room seemed to tilt around me. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself, my mind racing through the implications. I'd thought the danger was over, that I'd treated him, taken his money, and that would be the end of it. But of course it wasn't that simple. Nothing ever was. So what are you saying? I managed to ask. That I need protection from the people who tried to kill you? That's insane. I'm nobody. I'm just a nurse who knows I'm alive, Dante interrupted. Who can identify me, describe my injuries, maybe even testify about what happened if the police ever connected you to that night? His jaw tightened. You're not nobody anymore, Elena. You're a witness, a loose end. And in my world, loose ends don't survive long. I thought I might be sick. This can't be happening. I'm sorry. And incredibly, he sounded like he meant it. If I'd had any other choice that night, if there had been anywhere else to go. But you were there. You helped me. And now I have to help you, whether you want me to or not. By doing what? I looked up at him, at this man who'd upended my entire life in the space of one night. What exactly does your protection look like? For now? Surveillance. Guards you won't see, watching your apartment, your workplace, anywhere you go regularly. He glanced toward his men, then back to me. If there's any threat, any indication that you've been compromised, we'll move you somewhere safe. New identity, new city if necessary. I can't leave, I said immediately, thinking of my mother. My mother is dying. She's in hospice here. I can't just disappear. Something shifted in his expression. Your mother. She has maybe 3 months left. My voice cracked despite my effort to stay composed. I'm all she has. I can't leave her. Not now. Not. Then we'll protect her too. Dante's voice was firm, decisive. Both of you. Whatever it takes. I stared at him, trying to process this bizarre turn my life had taken. Yesterday I'd been a burned-out emergency room nurse, barely keeping my head above water. Today, I was apparently under the protection of a Mafia boss because I'd made the mistake of being good at my job. I need to get back to work, I said finally, because I didn't know what else to say. People are going to notice I'm gone. Of course. Dante stepped back, giving me space, but his eyes never left mine. Keep the phone I sent you. It's secure. If anything happens, anything that seems wrong or dangerous, you call that number on the card. Day or night, it doesn't matter. Someone will answer. I nodded numbly, clutching the business card in my hand. Elena. He said my name one more time, making me meet his gaze. I know you didn't ask for this, but I promise you, I will keep you safe. That's not a threat. It's a vow. Then he was gone, his guards falling into step behind him as they disappeared through the emergency room doors and into the night. I stood alone in the waiting room, the business card burning in my palm, and tried to figure out how my life had spiraled so completely out of control in less than 24 hours. The next 3 days passed in a strange fog of hyper-awareness and mounting paranoia. I saw them everywhere, the watchers Dante had promised, or thought I did. The man in the coffee shop who seemed to be reading the same page of his newspaper for 20 minutes. The woman in the SUV parked across from my apartment, building, engine running, never getting out. The delivery driver who lingered too long after dropping off a package for my neighbor. Were they Dante's people, keeping me safe? Or were they the enemies he'd warned me about, circling closer? I couldn't tell, and that uncertainty was slowly driving me insane. I went through the motions of my life work, visit my mother, sleep, repeat, but nothing felt real anymore. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Every time someone looked at me too long in the hospital corridors, I wondered if they knew. If somehow, impossibly, my face had been connected to Dante Caruso's survival. The secure phone he'd given me sat in my bag like a coiled snake. I'd turned it on once just to see. There were no contacts saved except one, a single initial. D. I hadn't called it, hadn't texted. I told myself I didn't need his protection, that this would all blow over, that I could go back to being invisible. But on the 4th day, everything changed. I was leaving my mother's hospice facility just after sunset, exhausted from a conversation about funeral arrangements that neither of us wanted to have but couldn't avoid any longer. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a handful of cars scattered across the spaces. Security lights flickered on as darkness fell, casting long shadows between the vehicles. I was halfway to my car when I felt it, that primal awareness that I wasn't alone. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. My keys were already in my hand, threaded between my fingers the way my mother had taught me when I was 16. A poor woman's weapon. Elena Rossi? The voice came from behind me. Male, unfamiliar, with an accent I couldn't place. Not Italian like Dante's. Something Eastern European, maybe. Russian. I turned slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. 2 men stood between me and the hospice entrance. Both were large, built like linebackers, wearing dark jackets despite the mild evening. One had a tattoo creeping up his neck, Cyrillic letters I couldn't read. I think you have me confused with someone else, I said, proud that my voice stayed steady. My thumb was already moving on my phone in my pocket, finding the power button by feel, trying to unlock it blind. No confusion. The one with the neck tattoo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're the nurse, the one who treated Caruso after the shooting. Ice flooded my veins. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult us. The second man moved closer, cutting off my angle to my car. We know you were at Mercy Hospital that night. We know Caruso came in with a gunshot wound. We know you didn't report it. I treat lots of patients, I said, taking a step backward. My shoulders hit a parked car. Trapped. I don't remember everyone who. You remember him. Neck Tattoo pulled something from his pocket. A photo, printed on regular paper, slightly grainy. Security camera footage, I realized with growing horror. It showed Dante, being supported by his 2 guards as they entered through what looked like a service entrance. The timestamp read 2:51 a.m. We have cameras too, Miss Rossi. Everywhere. What do you want? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Information. The second man was close now. Too close. I could smell cigarettes and something chemical on his breath. Caruso's injury. How bad was it? Where exactly was he shot? What did you do to treat it? I can't tell you that. Patient confidentiality. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. Pain exploded across my cheek, bright and sharp. I tasted copper. My vision blurred with reflexive tears. Wrong answer. Neck Tattoo grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Try again. How bad was he hurt? The secure phone. It was in my bag. Not my pocket. I'd never reach it in time. My regular phone was locked, and even if I could dial 911, would they get here before these men did whatever they'd come to do? I started, my mind racing for some answer that would satisfy them without betraying Dante. Not because I felt any loyalty to a man I barely knew, but because some instinct told me that betraying him would be the last mistake I ever made. The sound of tires on pavement made all 3 of us turn. A black Mercedes sedan pulled into the parking lot, moving fast but not recklessly. It stopped 15 feet away, angled so its headlights illuminated us in harsh white light. 2 doors opened simultaneously. Dante emerged from the passenger side, and even from a distance, I could see the cold fury in his face. Behind him came a man I recognized from the hospital waiting room, one of his guards. Both moved with the fluid precision of predators. Let her go. Dante's voice was quiet, but it carried across the parking lot like a physical force. Now. Neck Tattoo's grip on my arm tightened. Caruso, we were just having a conversation with your nurse friend here. The conversation is over. Dante moved closer, and I saw the slight stiffness in his shoulder where I'd sutured the wound. He was healed but not fully recovered. If this turned violent, he'd be at a disadvantage. You have 3 seconds to take your hands off her. 1. You think you can protect everyone, Dante. The second man pulled something from his jacket. The streetlight caught metal, a gun. You think you're untouchable? 2. We already sent her picture to Moscow. Volkov knows about her. He knows she saved your life. Neck Tattoo's smile was vicious. She's marked now. Caruso. You can't protect her from what's coming. 3. Everything happened at once. Dante's guard moved first, drawing his weapon with a speed that seemed impossible. The crack of gunfire split the air, 1 shot, perfectly placed. The man holding the gun dropped it, clutching his shoulder and screaming. Neck Tattoo shoved me hard toward my car and reached for his own weapon. But Dante was already there, covering the distance between us faster than should have been possible. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, and I heard bones snap. The gun clattered to the pavement. Then Dante's fist connected with the man's face once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Neck Tattoo went down hard, blood pouring from his broken nose. The whole thing took maybe 10 seconds. Marco, Dante said to his guard, not even breathing hard. Call Victor. Tell him if his men come near her again, our agreement is void. No more territories. No more peace. Yes, boss. Marco had his phone out, already dialing, his gun still trained on the man writhing on the ground with a bullet in his shoulder. Dante turned to me. His knuckles were bloody. There was a cold fury in his eyes that made him look capable of anything: murder, torture, worse. Then his gaze landed on my face, on the mark where I'd been hit, and something shifted. The fury didn't leave, but it redirected, became colder and more controlled. Did he hurt you anywhere else? His voice was gentle despite the violence that had just erupted. Elena, talk to me. Did they touch you anywhere else? I shook my head mutely. I couldn't seem to make my voice work. Couldn't process what I'd just witnessed, the speed, the precision, the casual brutality of it. Okay, you're safe now. He reached for me slowly, like he was approaching a frightened animal, and gently cupped my uninjured cheek. His hand was warm and surprisingly steady. Look at me, Elena. You're in shock. I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me? I realized I'd been holding my breath. I exhaled shakily and tried to pull air back into my lungs. It came in gasps at first, then gradually steadied. Good. That's good. His thumb brushed just below the mark on my face, careful not to touch the injury. We need to get you out of here. The hospice has security cameras, and I'd rather not be on them any longer than necessary. Can you walk? My mother. The words came out broken. She's inside. I was just visiting. I can't just leave. Marco will stay. He'll make sure she's protected. Dante was already guiding me toward his car. One hand on my lower back, steady and certain. I'll have a team here within the hour. She'll be safe, Elena. I promise. I let him lead me to the Mercedes, too overwhelmed to argue. The interior smelled like leather, and that same cologne I remembered from the hospital. Dante slid into the back seat beside me, leaving his driver to handle the front. As we pulled away, I looked back to see Marco on the phone, standing guard over the two injured men. An ambulance siren wailed in the distance. Someone had called it in. Where are we going? I finally managed to ask. Somewhere safe. Dante was texting rapidly on his phone. Somewhere they can't find you. You said I'd have guards I wouldn't see, that I could keep living my life normally. Panic was starting to break through the shock. You said I was wrong. He looked up from his phone, and there was something like regret in his eyes. I underestimated how quickly they'd move, how much they want me dead. He paused. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry. But normal is over. For now, maybe for a long time, you're going to have to trust me completely. I don't even know you. I know. He reached over and took my hand. His grip warm and solid. But you trusted me enough to save my life. Now I'm asking you to trust me enough to let me save yours. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. I looked down at our joined hands, his knuckles still bloody from breaking a man's face, my fingers trembling despite my effort to stay calm. This was insane. Everything about this situation was completely insane. But he was right about one thing. Normal was over. The moment those men had shown up in that parking lot, my old life had ended. The question now was whether I'd survive long enough to build a new one. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Dante's fingers tightened around mine, just slightly. A promise or a claim? I still couldn't tell the difference. The safe house was in Lincoln Park, in a neighborhood of elegant brownstones and tree-lined streets that I'd only ever seen from bus windows on my way to better-paying shifts. The building looked like any other from the outside, 3 stories of ivy-covered brick with black shutters and a small garden behind a wrought iron fence. Inside was a different story. The security system was more sophisticated than anything in the hospital. Cameras covered every angle. Motion sensors tracked movement. And there were men, 3 of them, that I could see stationed at strategic points throughout the first floor. This is temporary, Dante said as he guided me inside. His hand was still on my lower back, that steady presence that had become oddly reassuring, just until we can assess the threat level and determine next steps. Next steps, I repeated numbly. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me hollow and exhausted. What does that even mean? It means we figure out who wants you dead and why. A woman appeared from the kitchen, mid-40s, elegant despite the late hour, with dark hair pulled into a neat bun. And then we make sure they can't follow through on that desire. Dante made a gesture that might have been introduction or dismissal. Elena, this is Sophia. She manages my properties. Sophia, this is Elena Rossi. The nurse. Sophia's gaze swept over me, assessing. She noticed the mark on my face immediately, her expression tightening. Dante, she needs ice. And probably something stronger than ice. I'm fine, I said automatically, though I was anything but. You're in shock, Sophia corrected gently. Come with me. Let's get you settled. I glanced at Dante, some part of me needing his permission or reassurance before I could move. He nodded. Go with Sophia. I need to make some calls. I'll check on you in a bit. Sophia led me upstairs to a bedroom that looked like something from a magazine spread. Hardwood floors, a 4-poster bed with white linens, a sitting area with a gas fireplace. French doors opened onto a small balcony overlooking the garden. The bathroom is through there, Sophia said, pointing to a door on the left. There are clothes in the closet, various sizes. Help yourself to whatever fits. I'll bring up some food and ice for your face. I'm not hungry. You're going to eat anyway. Her tone brooked no argument. You've had a shock. Your body needs fuel. She left before I could protest further, closing the door with a soft click. I stood in the middle of the beautiful room and tried to figure out how my life had become completely unrecognizable in less than a week. 7 days ago, I'd been worried about paying rent and whether I'd have time to do laundry before my next shift. Now I was hiding in a safe house because Russian mobsters had threatened to kill me. The absurdity of it all hit me suddenly, and I started laughing. It came out harsh and broken, edging toward hysteria. I pressed my hand over my mouth to muffle the sound, but couldn't quite stop. A knock at the door interrupted my spiral into panic. "Elena?" Dante's voice, quiet and concerned. "Can I come in?" I wiped my eyes, trying to pull myself together. "It's your house." He entered, carrying ice wrapped in a cloth and a glass of amber liquid. "Sophia sent these. The ice is for your face. The whiskey is for your nerves." I took both, settling onto the edge of the bed because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. The ice stung when I pressed it to my cheek, but the pain was grounding. Real. Dante pulled up a chair from the sitting area, positioning it so we were at eye level. He'd taken off his suit jacket and rolled up his shirt sleeves. I could see the edge of the bandage I'd applied, peeking out from under the fabric. "How's your shoulder?" I asked, because focusing on his injury was easier than thinking about my own situation. "Healing well, thanks to you." He watched me press the ice to my face. I had my surgeon look at it the next day. He said, "You did excellent work under difficult circumstances." "I'm good at my job." "Yes, you are." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Elena, I need you to tell me exactly what those men said to you. Every word you can remember." I took a sip of the whiskey. It burned going down, but the warmth that spread through my chest was welcome. "They knew my name. They had security camera footage of you entering the hospital. They wanted to know how badly you were injured, what I'd done to treat you. And you didn't tell them?" "I didn't get the chance." I took another sip, larger this time. "They hit me. Then you showed up." Darkness flickered across his face. "Did they say anything else? Any names? Any locations?" The one with the neck tattoo mentioned someone named Volkov. Said they'd already sent my picture to Moscow. I met his eyes. "Who's Volkov?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "Viktor Volkov runs the Russian syndicate on the south side. We've had an uneasy peace for the past 3 years, territory sharing, mutual non-aggression. But peace only lasts as long as it's profitable for both parties. And shooting you would be profitable? For them?" "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. "My family controls shipping routes, import licenses, relationships with unions. If I die, there's a power vacuum. My cousin Antonio would take over, and he's..." Dante paused, choosing his words carefully. "Less diplomatic than I am. There would be war. The Russians could pick up pieces in the chaos. So they tried to kill you. They tried. They failed." His eyes met mine, dark and intense. "Because you saved my life, Elena. And now they know it. Which makes you valuable both as someone who can testify to what happened and as leverage against me." Leverage. The word tasted bitter. "So they'll what? Kidnap me? Torture me? Kill me to hurt you?" "All of the above, probably." In that order. He said it without flinching, without trying to soften the reality. "That's why you're here. Why you can't go home, can't go back to work, can't see your mother without a security detail." The implications were staggering. "For how long? Until this is resolved. How do you resolve something like this?" Dante's smile was cold. "By making it very clear what happens to people who threaten what's mine." That possessive phrase again. What's mine? As if I'd become his property through the simple act of treating his injury. "I'm not yours," I said quietly. "I'm not anyone's. You are now." There was no apology in his voice, just statement of fact. "You became mine the moment you chose to save my life instead of calling the police. The moment you took my money and kept my secret. Maybe you didn't understand what that meant in my world. But ignorance doesn't change reality." I stood abruptly, the ice and whiskey glass clattering onto the nightstand. "I don't accept that. I'm not some possession you can claim because I did my job. Elena." He stood too, moving closer. Not threatening, but solid and immovable. "I know you're scared. I know this isn't what you wanted. But you need to understand something." His hand came up to cup my uninjured cheek, gentle despite the violence I'd seen him capable of. "In my world, protection is the highest form of commitment. When I say you're mine, I'm not claiming ownership. I'm accepting responsibility for your safety, your well-being, your mother's care. Everything." I stared up at him, trying to reconcile the man who'd beaten someone bloody in a parking lot with the one now touching me like I was made of glass. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you accept that kind of responsibility for a stranger? Because you're not a stranger." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "You're the woman who saw me bleeding and broken and chose compassion over fear. Who risked everything to help me without asking for anything in return." His eyes held mine. "That kind of person is rare in my world, Elena. Worth protecting. Worth fighting for." The sincerity in his voice undid something in me. The tears I'd been holding back since the parking lot finally spilled over, hot and unwelcome on my cheeks. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted, my voice breaking. "I don't know how to be brave or strong or whatever you think I am. You don't have to be anything except yourself." Dante pulled me closer, and I found myself leaning into him, my forehead resting against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and sure. Let me be strong enough for both of us. At least for now. I shouldn't have taken comfort from him. Shouldn't have let myself relax into the embrace of a man who'd killed people, who lived by violence and fear. But I was so tired of being alone, so tired of carrying everything by myself. Just for a moment, I let myself lean. I woke in the unfamiliar bed, to pale morning light filtering through gauze curtains. For a disorienting moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back: the parking lot, the threats, Dante's cold fury as he'd broken a man's face to protect me. I sat up slowly, my body aching in ways that had nothing to do with physical injury. The clothes I'd been wearing were folded neatly on a chair. I was dressed in a soft cotton nightgown that I didn't remember changing into. Someone, probably Sophia, must have helped me after I'd fallen asleep. A clock on the nightstand read 6:47 a.m. Back in my real life, I'd be getting ready for the end of my night shift right now. Brewing terrible hospital coffee, updating charts, avoiding eye contact with the day shift nurses who resented having to take over our cases. But that wasn't my life anymore. Maybe it would never be again. A soft knock at the door made me reach automatically for the blanket, pulling it up like armor. "Come in," I called. Sophia entered with a tray, coffee, toast, fresh fruit arranged with the same elegance as everything else in this house. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" Like I'm living someone else's life. I accepted the coffee gratefully, breathing in the steam. It was good, much better than hospital coffee. "Thank you for the nightgown. And for taking care of me last night. You were exhausted, understandably so." Sophia set the tray on my lap, arranging everything within reach. "Mr. Dante asked me to let you know he had business to handle this morning, but he'll be back this afternoon. He wants to discuss next steps with you." Next steps. I took a sip of coffee, savoring the warmth. Does everyone in his world speak in euphemisms? A hint of a smile touched Sophia's lips. "It becomes habit, but if you want plain speaking, I can provide it. Please." She settled into the chair Dante had occupied last night. "You can't go home. The Russians know where you live, and while Mr. G. Dante could post guards there indefinitely, it's not sustainable. You can't return to work for similar reasons: too public, too many variables to control. Your mother's care has been arranged at an upgraded facility with round-the-clock security. She'll be safe and more comfortable than before." I set down my coffee cup with a clatter. "You moved my mother?" "Mr. Dante arranged the transfer early this morning. The new facility is excellent. Better pain management, more attentive staff, a private room with a view. She's being told that her insurance was corrected and she qualified for a higher level of care. She doesn't know you're here or why." I should have been furious at the presumption, at Dante making decisions about my mother's care without consulting me. But underneath the anger was relief. She would be safe, comfortable, and I wouldn't have to watch her die in that depressing room that smelled like industrial cleaner and defeat. "What about me?" I asked. "What are my next steps?" "That's what Mr. Dante wants to discuss with you." Sophia stood smoothly. "But for what it's worth, you have options, Elena. He's not keeping you prisoner. You're free to leave, to try to build a new life somewhere else with a new identity if that's what you choose. And if I stay," something shifted in Sophia's expression, "then you become part of his world. Really part of it, not just someone he's protecting. That comes with its own complications." She left before I could ask what those complications might be. I spent the day in a strange limbo, showering, eating the meals Sophia brought, exploring the safe house under the watchful but discreet eyes of Dante's security. The clothes in the closet fit surprisingly well, as if someone had guessed my size with unsettling accuracy. I chose jeans and a soft sweater in deep blue, normal clothes that made me feel slightly more like myself. The house had a library on the second floor, and I lost myself in books for a few hours, trying not to think about what decision I'd make when Dante returned. Stay or go? Accept this new reality or run from it? I was curled up in a window seat overlooking the garden when I heard footsteps on the stairs. My pulse quickened traitorously. Dante appeared in the doorway, still dressed for business in a charcoal suit, but he looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there last night. Elena. He said my name like a greeting and a question. Can we talk? I closed the book I'd been pretending to read. Is it really a question? Or have you already decided what happens next? It's a question. He moved into the room but kept his distance, respecting my space. I've spent today dealing with the Russians, making it very clear what happens if you're harmed. Viktor Volkov and I have reached an understanding. What kind of understanding? The kind where he recognizes that you're under my protection and that any action against you is an act of war. Dante's voice was calm, but I heard the steel underneath. It required some negotiations. But you're safe now, as safe as anyone can be in this life. So I can go home? Back to work? Physically? Yes. The immediate threat has been contained. He paused. But Elena, you need to understand, you're marked now. Not just by the Russians, but by everyone in my world. They all know about you. What you did, what you mean to me. What do I mean to you? I asked, my heart hammering. I'm just the nurse who patched you up. No. He moved closer, finally crossing the distance between us. You stopped being just the nurse. The moment you looked into my eyes and chose compassion over fear, you became something else. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. Someone I need to protect because I can't imagine a world where you're harmed, because of me. The intensity in his gaze stole my breath. Dante. I'm giving you a choice, he interrupted. Real choice. Not coercion. You can leave. I'll set you up with a new identity, a job in another city, money to start over. Your mother will continue to receive the best care until... He didn't finish the sentence. We both knew what came at the end of that timeline. You'll never see me again. Never have to think about this world or what happened here. Or you stay. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. You let me into your life. Really in it. You accept my protection not as temporary measure, but as permanent commitment. You learn my world, meet my people, become part of this thing I'm building. And what are you building? Something different than what my father had. Something more legitimate, more sustainable. His eyes held mine. I want to clean up the family business, Elena. Remove the worst elements. Focus on legitimate enterprises. But that takes time and careful maneuvering. Until then, I'm still who I am. Still dangerous, still connected to violence you shouldn't have to witness. Why me? I whispered. Why do you want me to stay? Because in 8 years of running this organization, of making impossible decisions and accepting horrible compromises, you're the first person who made me want to be better. His voice dropped lower, intimate. Because when I think about the future, about what I'm building and why, all I see is you. It was too much. Too fast. We barely knew each other beyond one night of medical crisis and one day of threat management. But there was something in his eyes, vulnerability beneath the power, loneliness beneath the control that resonated with something in me. I thought about my mother, dying slowly in a hospice room I could barely afford. About my student loans, and my ratty apartment, and my exhausting job that consumed my life without giving anything back. About the endless grind of survival that left no room for actual living. And I thought about the way Dante looked at me. Like I was something precious. Like my choices mattered. Like I could be more than just a burned-out nurse drowning in debt and grief. If I stay, I said slowly, testing the words. What does that actually look like? Hope flared in his eyes. It looks like you living here while we assess long-term security, visiting your mother with protection details. Maybe eventually returning to work, depending on threat levels. He paused. It looks like you getting to know me. Really know me, not just the man who bled on your table or broke someone's face in a parking lot. All of me, the good and the complicated and the things I'm not proud of. And in return, I take care of you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. Everything you need or want. Your mother's care, your education, if you want to continue it, security, comfort, freedom within the constraints of safety, and he hesitated, vulnerability showing through. And maybe, if you choose it, something more than protection, something real. My breath caught. You're talking about a relationship. I'm talking about possibility. His thumb traced my lower lip, the touch sending heat through me. I'm not asking you to fall in love with me, Elena. I'm asking you to give me a chance to earn it. I should have said no. Should have chosen the safe option, new identity, new city, new life, far from this beautiful, dangerous man and his complicated world. But I'd spent my whole life being careful, playing it safe. And where had it gotten me? Alone, exhausted, drowning in debt while my mother died by inches, and I worked myself to death trying to save her. Maybe it was time to be reckless. Maybe it was time to choose something dangerous that might actually be worth the risk. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. The smile that transformed Dante's face was like sunrise, brilliant and warm and full of promise. You won't regret it. I swear to you, Elena. I will spend every day making sure you don't regret it. Then he kissed me. It was gentle at first, questioning, giving me space to pull away if I wanted. But I didn't want space. I wanted his warmth, his strength, the promise of protection and care and maybe, impossibly, love. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his suit jacket, pulling him closer. He made a sound low in his throat and deepened the kiss, one hand cradling my face while the other wrapped around my waist. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. I won't let anyone hurt you, he murmured. Not the Russians, not anyone. You're mine now, Elena, and I protect what's mine. This time, the possessive words didn't scare me. This time, they felt like coming home. The first week of my new life passed in a blur of adjustment and discovery. Dante kept his word about letting me see my mother. Every afternoon, a car, arrived always with Marco driving, always with at least one other guard riding along. The new facility was everything Sophia had promised. Bright, modern, with staff who actually seemed to care about their patients instead of just marking time until retirement. My mother's new room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden where actual flowers grew, not just the sad bushes that had surrounded Oakwood. She had a private nurse who checked on her every hour, medication that actually managed her pain, even a TV that got more than basic cable. I don't understand how this happened, she said on my third visit, her thin hand clutching mine. She looked better already, less gray, less diminished. The improved pain management was giving her some quality of life back. The social worker said something about insurance corrections, but Elena, I've been fighting with that insurance company for months. They don't just suddenly decide to cover everything. Maybe someone finally did their job right, I lied, hating how easily deception came now. You deserve good care, Mama. Just accept it. She studied my face with a mother's intuition. Something's different about you. You look, I don't know, less tired, but also worried about something you're not telling me. I forced a smile. I'm fine. Actually, I'm taking some time off work. Personal leave. I was burning out, and I need to take care of myself. That part was true, at least. I'd called the hospital the morning after the parking lot attack, telling them I needed emergency family leave. They'd been surprisingly accommodating, probably because I'd never taken a sick day in 3 years, and had vacation time stacked up that I'd never used. What I didn't tell my mother was that Dante had also made a generous, anonymous donation to the hospital's trauma center. Or that the nurse manager who'd always made my life difficult had suddenly decided to accept a position at another facility. Coincidences, Dante claimed when I confronted him. But I was learning that nothing in his world was ever coincidental. You need to take care of yourself, my mother agreed, squeezing my hand. You work too hard. You always have, even when you were a girl. Her eyes grew distant with memory. Your father used to say you got that from me. The need to save everyone, even at your own expense. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, I said softly. Maybe. Or maybe it means you end up alone because you're too busy saving everyone else to let anyone save you. She looked at me directly, her gaze sharp despite her illness. Promise me you'll let someone in, Elena, before it's too late. Promise me you won't spend your whole life alone because you're afraid of needing anyone. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, living in a safe house with a man who'd claimed me as his, and I still couldn't tell my dying mother the truth. I promise, Mama, I whispered, meaning it more than she could know. The nights were harder than the days. I had my own room at the safe house, my own space that Dante never entered without invitation. But I could hear him sometimes, moving through the house late at night when sleep eluded him. Footsteps in the hallway, the soft murmur of phone conversations in Italian that I couldn't understand. Occasionally the clink of crystal as he poured himself a drink in the study below my room. On the 8th night, I found myself unable to sleep. My mind wouldn't shut off, cycling through everything that had happened, everything that had changed. I pulled on a robe over my nightgown and padded downstairs, following the light spilling from the study. Dante sat behind a massive mahogany desk, papers spread before him, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. Even exhausted and frustrated, I could see it in the tight line of his shoulders. He was beautiful. "Can't sleep?" he asked, without looking up. "How did you know I was there?" Now he did look up, a slight smile playing at his lips. "I always know when you're near. Your footsteps are lighter than Sophia's, and you pause before entering a room. Checking if it's safe, probably. Old habit from the hospital. The fact that he'd paid such close attention to my movements should have been unsettling. Instead, it made warmth bloom in my chest. "What are you working on?" I moved into the room, curiosity overcoming hesitation. "Legitimate business, actually. Import contracts, union negotiations." He gestured to the papers with something like frustration. "Trying to transition the family holdings into something that doesn't require violence to maintain. It's slower than I'd like." I settled into one of the leather chairs across from his desk. "Why is it important to you? The transition, I mean." "Most people in your position probably wouldn't care about going legitimate." "Because I'm tired." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as me. Tired of violence, of losing people I care about, of looking over my shoulder every moment waiting for the next attempt on my life. He took a sip of whiskey. "My father built this empire through force and fear. I want to build something that lasts longer than I do, something I can be proud of." "That's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" His eyes met mine over the rim of his glass. "A monster? A man who enjoys the violence and power? Maybe. At first." I pulled my robe tighter. "But nothing about you is what I expected, Dante. You break men's faces in parking lots, then come home and work on import contracts. You run a criminal organization, but you're trying to make it legitimate. You claim people as yours, but you give them choices. I can't figure you out." "Good." He set down his glass and stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, closer to me. "The moment people think they've figured me out, I lose the advantage. But with you," he paused, studying my face. "With you, I don't want advantage. I want understanding." "Then help me understand. Tell me about your father. About how you became this." For a long moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he refilled his whiskey glass and settled into the chair beside mine, close enough that our knees almost touched. "My father, Salvatore Caruso, came to Chicago from Sicily in 1975 with nothing but $50 and a contact in the old neighborhood." Dante's voice took on a distant quality. Like he was pulling up memories he usually kept locked away. He started running numbers for the Gambetti family. Small stuff, but he was smart, patient. By the time I was born in '88, he'd built his own crew. By the time I was 10, he controlled half the South Side. What was he like? As a father, I mean. Complicated. Dante took a slow sip of whiskey. He loved me and my sister Maria in his way, but his way was hard. He wanted me strong, prepared for this life. So he taught me, young, how to read people, how to negotiate, how to use violence efficiently when negotiation failed. His jaw tightened. I was 15 the first time I saw him kill someone. 16 the first time he made me watch an interrogation. 18 when he had me sitting in on sit-downs with other families. That's so young. In this life, you grow up fast or you don't grow up at all. He met my eyes. By the time I was 23 and my father was poisoned at a peace negotiation, I'd been preparing to take over for years, but nothing really prepares you for the weight of it. For knowing that every decision you make could get people killed. I reached out without thinking, covering his hand with mine. "I'm sorry. For your father, for the childhood you should have had. Don't be." But his fingers curled around mine, holding on. "It made me who I am. And who I am is the reason you're safe now, the reason I can protect you and your mother. I don't regret the path that led me here. To you." The intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. We were close now, closer than we'd been since that kiss a week ago. He'd been careful with me since then, giving me space to adjust, never pushing for more than I offered. But God, I wanted more. "Dante," I whispered, not even sure what I was asking for. He understood anyway. He always seemed to understand. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone in that gesture that had become familiar. Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me you're not ready and I'll wait as long as you need. But Elena, his voice dropped lower, rougher. Tell me you want this. That I'm not alone in feeling like the world only makes sense when you're near. You're not alone. The words came out breathless. I think about you constantly. When I'm visiting my mother, when I'm trying to sleep, every moment. I shouldn't want this, shouldn't want you, but I do. God help me, I do. The kiss was different this time. Not gentle or questioning, but hungry, claiming. His hands tangled in my hair as he pulled me closer, and I went willingly, climbing into his lap in the leather chair, my robe falling open as I straddled him. Elena, he groaned against my mouth. You should think about, I'm done thinking. I kissed him harder, pouring weeks of fear and longing and desperate need into it. I'm done being careful and practical and afraid. I want this. I want you. He stood in one smooth motion, lifting me with him. I wrapped my legs around his waist, trusting him to hold me as he carried me up the stairs to his bedroom, a room I'd never entered, the inner sanctum of his private world. The room was masculine and elegant like everything else about him. Dark wood, leather, windows overlooking the garden below. But I barely registered the details before he laid me on his bed, his body covering mine, his weight both thrilling and reassuring. Are you sure? He asked one more time, even as his hands slid under my nightgown, skating over skin that burned at his touch. Once we do this, once I have you, I won't let you go easily. You need to understand that about me. I'm sure. I pulled him down for another kiss, arching into him. I've never been more sure of anything. What followed was a claiming and a surrender, a revelation and a promise. Dante made love to me with an intensity that stole my breath, his hands and mouth everywhere, learning my body with the same focused attention he applied to everything else. And I gave myself to him completely, holding nothing back, letting him see every vulnerable part of me I'd kept hidden for so long. Afterward, we lay tangled together in his sheets, my head on his chest where I could hear his heartbeat slowing back to normal. His fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder, idle and soothing. I meant what I said. He murmured into my hair. I won't let you go easily. You're mine now, Elena. Completely mine. I know. And strangely, I was okay with that. More than okay. You're mine too, whether you realize it or not. His chest rumbled with quiet laughter. Yes. I think I've been yours since the moment you looked at me bleeding on your table and chose to help instead of run. I lifted my head to look at him. No regrets? Never. He kissed me softly, tenderly. Sleep, amore. I'll be here when you wake. I drifted off in his arms, safer and more content than I'd been in years. Maybe ever. 2 weeks into what I'd started thinking of as my new life, Dante came home early from a meeting looking troubled. I was in the library, actually reading this time, instead of just pretending, when he found me. One look at his face told me something was wrong. What happened? I set down my book, already tensing for bad news. Victor Volkov. Wants a meeting. Dante's jaw was tight. With both of us. Ice flooded my veins. Why? He says he wants to apologize properly for his men's behavior. Make amends. Dante moved to the window, looking out, at the garden without seeing it. It's a peace offering, supposedly. A way to ensure this doesn't escalate into something worse. You don't believe him. I don't trust him. But refusing the meeting would be an insult. It could trigger the very war we're trying to avoid. He turned to face me. I need you to understand this is dangerous. Volkov is unpredictable. But if we can get through this meeting, establish clear boundaries about your safety, it might actually help stabilize things. When? Tonight. Neutral territory, a restaurant in the Loop that's jointly owned by 3 families. Public enough to be safe, private enough for real conversation. His eyes searched mine. I won't force you to go. If you say no, I'll find another way. But Elena, having you there, showing Volkov that you're not afraid, that you're really under my protection, it sends a message. I thought about it. About the risk versus the reward. About the fact that I was part of this world now, whether I liked it or not, and hiding wouldn't change that. Okay, I said finally. I'll go. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. I'll have Sophia help you prepare. The meeting is at 8. Formal dress, we need to show strength, not fear. The restaurant was called Impero, and it lived up to its name. All marble and gold accents, with crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than my old apartment. We arrived exactly on time, not early enough to seem eager, not late enough to seem weak. Dante had explained the politics of it all on the drive over. In his world, everything meant something. Where you sat, what you wore, even how you held your wine glass could signal power or weakness. I wore a dress Sophia had procured from somewhere midnight blue silk that hugged my curves and made me feel both beautiful and armored. My hair was styled in soft waves, makeup subtle but flawless. I looked like I belonged in Dante's world, even if I still felt like an imposter. Viktor Volkov was already there, seated at a private table in the back with 2 men flanking him. He was older than I'd expected, mid-50s, with silver hair and ice blue eyes that assessed me like I was a horse he was considering buying. Dante. He stood, offering his hand. The 2 men shook, a ritual of civility over a foundation of mutual distrust. Then those cold eyes turned to me. And you must be the famous nurse, Elena Rossi. Mr. Volkov. I kept my voice steady, channeling every ounce of courage I possessed. Please, sit. He gestured to the chairs across from him. I wanted to meet the woman who caused such a stir, the woman worth going to war over. Dante's hand found mine under the table, a warning or reassurance. Elena is under my protection. That's all you need to know. Of course, Volkov waved a dismissive hand. I've already made it clear to my people she's off limits, untouchable. Any action against her would violate our understanding. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to apologize in person. My men acted rashly. Without authorization. They've been dealt with. I thought about Neck Tattoo and his companion, wounded in that parking lot. Dealt with probably didn't mean a stern talking to. Apology accepted, Dante said, his tone making it clear the matter wasn't really up for discussion. As long as we're clear going forward. Crystal clear. Volkov poured wine, going through the motions of hospitality. But I confess, I'm curious. What makes this particular woman so valuable? You've never shown such attachment before, Dante. Not even to Sofia Valentini, and you were engaged to her. Elena is different. Dante's grip on my hand tightened fractionally. That's all you need to know. Different how? Volkov's gaze fixed on me. What makes you worth all this trouble, Miss Rossi? Are you that good in bed? Or is there something else? The crude question was designed to provoke too. See if I'd flinch, if Dante would lose control. I felt Dante tense beside me, his carefully maintained composure starting to fracture. I'm worth it, I said before Dante could respond. Because I see who he really is. Not just the power and the violence, but the man underneath. The one trying to build something better than what he inherited. I met Volkov's cold gaze directly. You look at him and see a rival, a threat. I look at him and see someone worth saving. That's what makes me different. Silence fell over the table. Volkov studied me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or calculation. You have courage, he finally said. More than most men in this business. I see why Dante values you. He raised his wine glass. To peace, then. And to keeping valuable things safe from unnecessary violence. We drank the toast, but the wine tasted like ash in my mouth. Because I could see it in Volkov's eyes, this wasn't over. This was a strategic retreat, not a surrender. He'd wait and watch, looking for weakness, for an opportunity. The rest of the dinner passed in a haze of forced pleasantries and subtle power plays. By the time we left, my face hurt from maintaining a calm expression, and my shoulders ached with tension. You were perfect, Dante said in the car, pulling me close. Strong, smart, unafraid. Exactly what I needed him to see. He's still going to come after us eventually, isn't he? I asked quietly. Dante didn't insult me with false reassurance. Probably. Men like Volkov don't forgive perceived slights. But tonight bought us time. Time to strengthen our position, prepare for whatever comes next. What does come next? We finish the transition I started. Clean up the last of the illegal operations, cement our legitimate holdings. His arm tightened around me. We make ourselves untouchable through power that doesn't rely on violence. Money, influence, political connections, the kind of power Volkov can't. Fight with guns and threats. How long will that take? Months. Maybe a year. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Can you be patient with me? Trust me to keep you safe while I build this? I thought about my mother, still dying by inches despite the better care. about the life I'd left behind and the uncertain future ahead. About the man holding me who'd somehow become my entire world in just weeks. Yes, I whispered. I can be patient. But patience was tested sooner than either of us expected. 3 days after the dinner with Volkov, I got a call from the hospice. My mother had taken a turn. She was asking for me. Marco drove me there immediately, with 2 additional guards in a follow car. But when we arrived, the facility was locked down. Police cars surrounded the building, lights flashing in the gray morning. Stay in the car, Marco ordered, already on his phone to Dante. But I couldn't stay. That was my mother in there. I was out of the car before Marco could stop me, running toward the entrance where a uniformed officer held up his hand. I'm sorry, miss, but we can't let anyone. My mother is a patient here. Panic clawed at my throat. Elena Rossi, what's happening? Is she okay? The officer's expression softened. What's your mother's name? Maria Rossi. Room 304. Please, I need to see her. He spoke into his radio, then nodded. You can go in, but there's a detective who'll want to speak with you. Don't touch anything in the room. Ice crystallized in my veins. Why would I need to not touch anything? What happened? But I already knew. Deep in my gut, I already knew. I ran through the corridors, Marco and the guards struggling to keep up. When I reached my mother's room, a man in a suit blocked the doorway. A detective, based on the badge clipped to his belt. Miss Rossi? He had kind eyes, which somehow made it worse. I'm Detective Harrison. I'm sorry, but there's been an incident. Where's my mother? I tried to push past him, but he held, firm. She's alive. She's okay. But someone tried to. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Someone tampered with her medication. The night nurse caught it before any harm was done. But Miss Rossi, someone tried to kill your mother. The world tilted. Marco caught me as my knees buckled, his strong arms the only thing keeping me upright. Who? I managed to gasp out. Who would? But I knew that too. Deep down I knew. Volkov. The dinner had been a distraction. A way to establish alibis while his people made a move against the one thing that could hurt me more than my own death. We need to get you out of here, Marco said urgently into my ear. The boss is on his way, but it's not safe. I need to see my mother. I pulled away from him, focusing on Detective Harrison. Please, just let me see her. Let me know she's okay. The detective studied me for a moment, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. Then we need to talk. I stumbled into the room on legs that felt like water. My mother lay in her bed, looking smaller and frailer than ever. But her eyes were open, alive. When she saw me, relief flooded her face. Elena, baby. Her voice was thin but steady. I'm okay. Don't cry, sweetheart. I'm okay. I collapsed into the chair beside her bed, taking her hand in both of mine. Mama, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of this is... Hush now. She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had. The detective told me what happened, that someone put something in my IV. But the nurse caught it. I'm fine. Her eyes, still sharp despite everything, studied my face. Elena, what have you gotten yourself into? The lie died on my lips. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't hide behind careful omissions and half-truths. I made a choice, Mama. A dangerous one. And now people are trying to hurt me by hurting you. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to touch you. Oh, baby. Her hand came up to touch my face, and I saw understanding in her eyes. Understanding and something that might have been resignation. Is it him? The man who's been paying for my care? The one you haven't told me about? I nodded, tears spilling freely now. His name is Dante. It's complicated, but yes. He's been taking care of everything. And now someone's trying to hurt him through me. Through you. Is he good to you? She asked. Does he make you happy? The question surprised me. I'd expected judgment, fear, anger that I'd brought danger to her door. Instead, she was asking about my happiness. Yes, I whispered. He makes me feel safe. Cared for, like I matter to someone beyond what I can do for them. Then, I'm glad. She smiled, and there was peace in it. I've worried about you for so long, Elena. Worried that you'd spend your whole life taking care of everyone else without letting anyone take care of you. If this man, this Dante, if he sees how special you are, then I'm glad. Even if it's dangerous. Even if it's complicated. Mama, listen to me. Her grip tightened, urgent now. I don't have much time left. We both know it. And I won't spend what time I have left watching you sacrifice your happiness to keep me safe. Her eyes held mine fiercely. You do what you need to do. Be with who you need to be with. I'll be fine, and if I'm not... She paused, her smile turning sad. Then at least I'll die knowing you found someone who makes you feel alive. I was sobbing now, unable to hold it back. I can't lose you. Not yet. I'm not ready. No one's ever ready, baby. But that's not how it works. She pulled me close, and I rested my head on her shoulder like I was a child again. Promise me you'll live, Elena. Really live. Not just survive, but thrive. With this man who sees you. With the future you're building. Promise me. I promise, Mama. The words came out broken. I promise. We stayed like that until Detective Harrison cleared his throat from the doorway. Gently but firmly, he explained that I needed to come with him to give a statement. That my mother was being moved to a secure location until they could ensure her safety. I kissed her goodbye, not knowing if I'd see her again. Not knowing if Volkov would try again. Not knowing anything except that this had to end. Marco led me out of the hospice and into the back of the waiting car. But instead of returning to the safe house, we drove to a warehouse on the south side, an address Marco told me Dante had sent. What is this place? I asked as we pulled up to a nondescript building with blacked-out windows, where the boss handles business. Marco's expression was grim. The kind that can't be handled in restaurants or boardrooms. The warehouse interior was mostly empty, just open space with exposed beams and concrete floors. In the center, under harsh fluorescent lights, Dante stood with his men surrounding him, and on his knees before them, hands bound, face already bloody, was neck tattoo from the parking lot. I froze in the doorway, my mind struggling to process the scene. Dante saw me, and his expression changed fury, mixing with something like guilt. Elena, you shouldn't be here. Marco, I told you to take her to the safe house. She insisted. Marco said quietly, said she needed to see you. I moved forward as if in a dream, my eyes fixed on the man kneeling on the floor. Is he the one who tried to hurt my mother? Yes. Dante's voice was flat, controlled. He acted on Volkov's orders. The medication tampering was meant to send a message that no one under my protection is safe. That I can't keep my promises. I looked at the bound man, at the blood on his face, at the fear in his eyes, and I felt nothing. No compassion, no horror. Just cold emptiness where those emotions should have been. What are you going to do to him? I asked. What needs to be done? Dante moved closer to me, his eyes searching mine. Elena, you should go. You don't need to see this. Don't need to be part of this. They tried to kill my mother. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Because of me. Because I helped you. Don't I have a right to be here? Something dark flickered in Dante's expression. What are you asking me? I stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear. I'm asking if you're going to kill him. And if you are, I'm asking to stay. To witness it. To know exactly what the cost of your protection is. Elena, I'm not naive, Dante. I've known from the beginning what you are, what you're capable of. But this... I gestured to the man on the floor. This is because of me. Because I chose to save your life. Don't I deserve to see where that choice leads? For a long moment, Dante just looked at me. Then he nodded slowly. If that's what you want, but understand you can't unsee this. Can't unknow it. If you stay, you're choosing to really see me. All of me. I know. And I did. This was the moment where I either fully committed to this life, to this man, or I ran. There was no middle ground left. Dante turned back to the bound man. You tried to kill an innocent woman to send me a message, he said, his voice cold and precise. You put hands on someone under my protection. In my world, there's only one answer to that. He drew a gun from the holster at his back. The movement was smooth, practiced. He'd done this before. Many times, probably. I should have looked away. Should have closed my eyes or left the warehouse. But I didn't. I watched as Dante raised the gun, as the man on the floor began to beg, as the shot rang out, sharp and final in the empty space. I watched him die. And I felt nothing but relief that he couldn't hurt my mother again. Get rid of it, Dante ordered his men, his voice emotionless, and send a message to Volkov. Tell him this is what happens to anyone who touches what's mine. Tell him the next person who tries ends up the same way. No warnings. No negotiations. Just this. The men moved to comply, and Dante turned to me. There was blood spatter on his shirt. His expression was carefully blank, like he was bracing for my revulsion. Instead, I stepped into his arms. "Thank you," I whispered against his chest. "For keeping your promise. For protecting her. For protecting me." His arms came around me, holding me tight. "Don't thank me for this, Elena. Don't thank me for violence. I'm not thanking you for violence. I'm thanking you for keeping me safe, for being strong enough to do what needed to be done." I looked up at him. "I see you, Dante. All of you. The parts that build things and the parts that destroy things. And I'm still here. I'm still choosing you." Something broke in his expression, relief, and pain, and love all tangled together. "You shouldn't. You should run as far from me as you can. Too late for that." I pulled him down for a kiss, tasting smoke and whiskey and the promise of violence. "I'm all in now. For better or worse. Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," he echoed, and it sounded like a vow. The war with Volkov lasted another month. Not a war of guns and blood, not after Dante's message about what happened to people who touched what was his, but a war of business and politics, of influence and power plays. Volkov tried to undermine Dante's legitimate businesses, spread rumors about his reliability, interfere with his political connections, and Dante fought back with patience and precision, slowly dismantling Volkov's empire piece by piece, not through violence, but through the very legitimacy he'd been building. He called in favors from judges and politicians, used his legitimate holdings to squeeze Volkov out of profitable ventures, made it clear that aligning with the Caruso family was the smart play for anyone who wanted to thrive in Chicago. I watched it all from the inside, learning this world he inhabited. I met his sister Maria, who flew in from Paris and hugged me like I was already family. I sat in on meetings where millions of dollars changed hands with a handshake. I learned to read the subtle power dynamics that governed his world. And every night, I fell asleep in his arms, in his bed, in the life we were building together. My mother's condition stabilized with the better care. She had good days and bad days, but she was safe, protected, comfortable. And she got to see me happy, which seemed to give her peace. "You look different," she told me one afternoon about 6 weeks after the hospice incident. We were in her new room, even more luxurious than before, with round-the-clock security that she pretended not to notice. "Settled. Like you finally found where you belong." "Maybe I have," I admitted, holding her hand. "Is that wrong? To find happiness in such a strange place?" "Happiness is never wrong, baby. No matter where you find it." She squeezed my fingers weakly. "I'm glad you found him. Glad you found each other." She died 3 days later, peacefully in her sleep. No pain, no struggle. Just a gentle slipping away that the hospice nurse said was the best possible outcome. I grieved hard for the mother I'd lost, for the childhood I'd never had, for all the time we should have had together. But I didn't grieve alone. Dante held me through it all, steady and strong, letting me cry without trying to fix it, just being present in my pain. The funeral was small but beautiful. Dante arranged everything, sparing no expense. My mother was buried with dignity and honor, remembered by people she'd helped throughout her life who I'd barely known existed. She would have liked this, I told Dante afterward, standing in front of her grave with his arm around me. Would have liked knowing she was loved by so many people. "She raised an extraordinary daughter," Dante said quietly. "That's the best legacy anyone could ask for." 6 months after that night in the warehouse, Volkov's empire collapsed entirely. A federal investigation prompted by tips from anonymous sources, Dante's people, undoubtedly uncovered money laundering, tax evasion, and connections to human trafficking. Volkov was arrested, his assets frozen, his organization dismantled. "It's over," Dante told me the night we got word of Volkov's arrest. We were in his study, the space that had become ours, our sanctuary. "You're safe. Really, truly safe now." "We're safe," I corrected, moving to sit in his lap, my favorite place to be. "Together." He smiled, that genuine smile I'd learned to treasure. "Together." "So what now?" I asked, playing with his tie. "What comes next for us?" "That depends." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "On whether you'll marry me." My breath caught. I opened the box with shaking hands to reveal a ring, a simple band with a single perfect diamond. Elegant, understated. "Perfect. I know we met under impossible circumstances," Dante said, his voice rough with emotion. I know I dragged you into a world you never asked to be part of. But Elena, you've made me want to be better. Made me believe I could build something good out of all this darkness. And I don't want to face another day without you by my side. Officially, permanently, in every way that matters. Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably had Sophia measure while I slept. I love you, I whispered against his lips. My dangerous, complicated, beautiful man. I love you so much. And I love you, amore mio. He kissed me deeply, pouring everything he felt into it. My brave, compassionate, extraordinary woman. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, I corrected. That's what this is. Two people finding safety in each other when the world was too dangerous to face alone. Then let's face it together. He stood, lifting me with him. For the rest of our lives. I stood in the nursery of Adenit, our new home, not the safe house, but a real house that Dante had bought specifically for starting our family, watching him rock our daughter to sleep. Sophia Maria Caruso was 3 months old, with dark hair like her father and my eyes. She had his stubborn determination and my tendency to observe everything quietly before reacting. She was perfect. Is she asleep? I whispered from the doorway. Finally. Dante looked up, and the love in his eyes took my breath away. She fights it just like her mother. Stubborn to the end. She gets that from you, I countered, moving to stand beside him, looking down at our daughter's tiny sleeping face. Me? I'm very reasonable. I laughed softly. You're many things, Dante Caruso. Reasonable isn't one of them. He carefully placed Sophia in her crib, then pulled me into his arms. No regrets? Not a single one. And it was true. This life, this strange, complicated, beautiful life we'd built was everything I'd never known I wanted. You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. That we didn't have more time. We have all the time in the world now. I looked up at him. A lifetime of it. A lifetime of you and me and our family. His hand came to rest on my stomach, where another life was just beginning to grow. We'd found out just yesterday. And whoever this is, you knew, I asked, surprised. I always know everything about you, amore. It's my job to pay attention. His smile was smug. Besides, you've been falling asleep on the couch every evening for a week, and you haven't touched coffee in 3 days. I was just waiting for you to tell me. How do you feel about it? I asked, suddenly nervous. Another baby so soon? I feel like the luckiest man alive. He pulled me closer. I have you. I have Sophia. I'm building a business I can be proud of, and now another child is coming. How could I feel anything but grateful? I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong and steady. Safe. I love you, I whispered. My Mafia boss. My protector. My home. And I love you. My fierce nurse. My savior. My everything. Outside, the city glittered with lights. Somewhere out there, danger still existed. Threats still lurked. But here, in this room, with this man and the family we'd created, I was safe. I'd treated a gunshot wound in silence, and it had changed my entire life. Had led me to love I'd never expected, to a family I'd never imagined, to a future brighter than anything I'd dared hope for. Sometimes the most dangerous choices led to the most beautiful destinations. And I wouldn't change a single moment of the journey that had brought me here. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.